Mortal Kombat and H Plus are incredibly ambitious projects, and I'd love for you guys to talk a little bit about what the process was like of getting both of these made. John, if you can start.
Well, getting it made, or getting it, getting it made at Warner Brothers, or just
Making it yourself.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, talk on both sides.
Well, this project actually sort of happened in the last years while I was working on Gilmore Girls. I knew that I was going to be transitioning out of acting and into writing, directing, producing, and I was looking for something, to kind of be that launching vehicle, and came up with this story, actually sort of inspired by, I was actually driving through a parking lot at the Kodak Theater, in now it's the Dolby Theater. At the time it was the Kodak Theater, where the Academy Awards are. I was going to see a movie. There's a movie theater there. And I was going down, and my radio started to go out. And for whatever reason, I just got this sort of disconcerting feeling that like I suddenly was cut off from the rest of the world. And I just thought that was so strange, because it's sort of something new that we feel now when we aren't connected, or we can't be connected, because we're constantly connected. And I guess that sort of one thing led to another, and I started thinking about implants and the future when our actual bodies may be connected to the internet in various ways, and that's actually happening, and it has happened much more since this, since I had these sort of ideas. This was back in 2006. The iPhone hadn't even come out yet, so we didn't even really have a lot of the tech vernacular that we have now, where we sweep and swipe our fingers and whatnot. And so I went to Cosimo de Tomaso. He's my writing partner on this, and I shared the idea, and I was like, you want to try and turn this into something? We didn't really know what it would be, but we wanted to just sort of build it out. And so we just started researching, sort of building out this world little by little, characters. We still didn't know what it was going to be, film, TV, whatever. We were just building it, and then finally we started sharing it with people. And it became clear almost immediately that this needed to be a web project, because it was about the internet, and it, more and more we wanted to tell it in these vignettes, and we wanted to tell a story that sort of spanned across the world, that wasn't just so US-centric. And so we had heard that Warner Brothers was looking to get into this space. And I said, I want to take a meeting with them. I sat down with Lydia Antonini, who was the executive over at Warner Brothers, and shared the idea, and she was like, this is exactly the type of thing that we want to do. That was in 2008. And then 4 years later, 4 years later, we did it. So it took like about a year for us to get to the place where we actually started working on it at Warner Brothers. And then, the studio process kicked in, which you would think in the web space would be fast, but even in the web space, it was very slow. I was watching good friends of mine who were also starting to experiment in digital media, web media, just like rocketing by with web series after web series after web series, because the tools to making series for the internet have gone down, and really democratized this entire medium. But for us, we were sort of stuck in this studio machine. I mean, you were, Doug was the producer of H+. He didn't mention that in his speech. He's incredible. And yeah, it took a while, but finally in 2011, early 2011, we got greenlit, went down to Chile, shot for 30 days. We were there for 2 months, if you count in the preparation.
Yep.
The story, as you can see, is huge. We approximated 13 different geographic locations, from like Alaskan tundra to African savanna. We had India, Finland, all these places that we just sort of created down there in Chile, and then we put it up on YouTube in 2012, and And that's basically the story.
And so John started off with a concept and a script, and Kevin, you kind of came at it from a different way. You started off with a visualization of kind of your take on this game franchise, right?
I had just finished doing Fame, and I kind of stumbled into the whole choreography music thing. It wasn't anything that I grew up absolutely wanting to do. It was kind of like a cool little hobby. Take dance classes, and somehow it led to becoming a choreographer. But when you're like 16 and you do a Britney audition, you don't say no. You kind of just keep going. So after Fame, I wanted to get back to kind of what I always wanted to do, which was like comic book genre, horror, action kind of stuff. Because I grew up a very cliche, nerdy Asian child. So I grew up on like Kung Fu movies and Power Rangers and Ninja Turtles and all that, It's embarrassing. So after Fame, Hollywood will put you in a box, a very, very tight box. So the only movies that were being discussed with me was like Step Up 18, right? And I just didn't want to do that. Ballet dancer meets hip hop boy, and somehow they solve all of the world issues by dance tournament. Growing up, I was always a hands-on tech guy, and I think more and more now with this new generation, that is just becoming the thing to do, right? You see all these people on YouTube, they shoot their own stuff, they score their own stuff, they do their own After Effects, they do their own voiceover and visual effects. It's crazy. And so growing up an editor, I just kind of felt like the only way anyone was going to let me do anything that I wanted to do was if I did it first, right? First chances are usually very rare, especially in the studio system. So I got a bunch of my friends together, rented a bunch of 2 Red cameras and a location, and asked for a bunch of favors, and we shot my original short film called Mortal Kombat Rebirth in 2 days. And then it was put online, and then that's when I got the call from Warner Brothers, at least, I think, like 3 days later. Originally, it was under the pretense that they were going to sue me. So I was terrified, because they had a game coming out, and there was this whole marketing initiative, and my short film kind of just got right in the middle of it, and kind of screwed up, I think, a plan that they had. But I think after a couple of days, they kind of cooled down, because they realized that, like, on Google, Mortal Kombat was the #1 most searched thing for 48 hours. So it in turn helped drive video game viewership and marketing for the game. So that's why they called me and like, hey, we want to do this experiment where instead of like doing a bunch of video game commercials, why don't you have this small budget and go shoot 9 more of your short films, and we'll use that as support for the game. And then that's how season 1 kind of started. It was an experiment. Like, at the time, they didn't really know what they wanted it to achieve. They just knew that it was getting a lot of attention. The term digital or web series was becoming a new kind of inventive and exciting world that wasn't yet being monetized. I'm not, Yeah. So they saw it more as a marketing spin for them. And then that's how season 1, then season 2, and then a movie. And,
I'd love you guys to talk about a little bit about, what are some of the benefits and obstacles, I guess, of having a series made for the web or on the web?
Well, to do something at that level, premium content, I mean, it requires a budget.
Right.
So that's actually a little bit of a catch-22 in terms. It sounds okay. The best way to say it is, we can talk about what the budget of these projects were. The H+'s budget was $2 million. Now, in the web space, that's massive, right? Like, any web creator hears, I'm going to give you $2 million to make a web series, and they're like, I mean, I can do anything with that, right? But in the studio system, $2 million is nothing, right? So working with that kind of money really only comes when you're working at the studio level, or usually. And that comes with a lot of obstacles that makes $2 million practically nothing, right? So that Doug's like like nodding because he was the producer, so he
John,
knows.
how many cast members were in H plus?
15.
15
major. I mean, it was like Lost. I mean, it was a huge. I mean, Lost was a big inspiration for us. I mean, it was big, multinational cast. We had an actor from Italy, an Italian actor from Italy. We had a huge German actress playing one of the roles, big Finnish actor playing one of the roles. We flew everybody down to Chile for this, business class. I mean, all of this stuff, and then, of course, when you say that you're a Warner Brothers project, nobody's going to give you anything for free. And a huge part of what allows digital filmmakers to make their stuff at the cost they do is that they expect people are going to help them because they're young filmmakers trying to make it happen. And we were young filmmakers trying to make it happen. We were a bunch of guerrilla indie filmmakers.
Some of us were younger than others.
Right, but that were working with a major studio, so every time we were trying to explain, no, we're the C-stand grabbing filmmakers, that are just like any other indie filmmaker. It came with Warner Brothers, so that made it very hard for us to get through those doors. Those doors were closed, and we only had $2 million to get through those doors when usually a Warner Brothers project has $45 to $100 million. So that's, I think, the big challenge to making projects at that sort of premium level, and it was probably, I'd say, the most challenging part of the process for us. And then also, it comes with that, afterwards people are like, oh, well, it's a web series, but it's not really a web series though, right? Because Warner Brothers did it. And it's like, yeah, it kind of is, because it was just as difficult for us to squeeze that out. And yeah, I mean, coordinating actors' schedules. You said it it's true. The actors, we had a lot of actors who are TV actors who, are big, they work all the time. And we had to coordinate with all of their schedules. Obviously they really wanted to do the project. They thought the material was really exciting, very different, like nothing they'd ever worked on before, but they all want to make money. And they weren't getting paid very much to do this. So it was really a passion project that required, as I'm sure you remember, Doug, a lot of really complex scheduling to make all of that work. And that's just because we're at a place right now, we're at the sort of birth of all of this, and in order to make a series for the internet, whether it's premium with a studio or whether it's independent, with you and a camera, that you bought from the electronics store, it's tough.
Yeah. Great. Kevin, what about you, as far as kind of benefits and...
budget is always, for sure. I think, for me, the biggest obstacle for this medium was attention span, right? So, if I'm on my laptop and I have my TV on, I'll be completely honest, I'm like this. So, it's really hard to get me to pay attention to something on my laptop and like 10 minutes is an eternity sometimes on a laptop.
Right.
So, trying to figure out how to tell stories that appeal to people who have ADD, I think it was very challenging. I think I had a little bit a help because Mortal Kombat is so well known. So you put Scorpion at the first 30 seconds of it, you're kind of already, you're watching it. I find trying to make a lot of the dramatic scenes work for people online very challenging. I think the genres that work online very well are comedy, number one, because comedy is like, you get your attention, it's fast, it's upbeat, it's fun. I think action, because that's also just fun to watch. It's in your, like Freddie Wong kind of stuff, and he kind of puts the two together. Sure. I think horror is a good one for online consumers. The one genre that seems to be very difficult is drama, right? Mm-hmm. Two people talking on a laptop is sometimes really hard. And that's why the way you guys broke down your episodes was so clever, because they were like bursts. and then the user was able to create their own experience essentially. But like getting me to watch a very long dramatic piece on the internet for a while was very difficult. I know Wong Fu did one that was like humongous.
Right.
I think it's going to start changing though as these apps become available on smart television.